Because somewhere out there, in that quiet dark, two brothers are waiting. Not for glory, not for riches, just for the chance to help, to do a little good. So close your eyes and come aboard. The lantern awaits. There were once two brothers, named Jace and Rowan. They weren't just brothers, they were bounty hunters, but not the scary kind. They only chased down thieves and helped lost ships get home. They flew across space in a small silver ship called the Lantern. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't new, but it had a warm cabin, soft lights, and it always brought them home. One quiet evening, they got a message. The cargo ship had gone missing, near the dark side of the moon, Tessar. No one had heard from it in days. The brothers looked at each other, nodded, and set their course. The stars stretched out like glitter across a deep velvet sky. Jace sipped warm tea. Rowan hummed an old song. They weren't in a hurry. They liked the quiet. When they reached Tessar, the planet was still. Cold winds blew across its blue surface. And there, hidden in the shadows, was the missing ship. The Violet Echo? Its lights were dim, its engines silent, but it wasn't broken. It was trapped. A strange magnetic storm had pulled it down and wouldn't let go. The brothers circled slowly, scanning the storm. Then Rowan said softly, "We don't fight storms, we dance around them." So that's what they did. Rowan flew low and careful. Jace used a tow beam to pull the ship free. It took a while. They didn't rush. When the ship was safe, its captain thanked them. She had been alone and scared. The brothers didn't say much, just smiled, and offered her a warm drink. As they flew home, the stars twinkled like they were proud, and the brothers, tired and calm, leaned back in their seats. "We're not heroes," Jace said. Rowan nodded. "No, just people who show up." The lantern glided through the dark, soft and steady. And in the silence between the stars, the brothers slept. And though that night ended, with stars outside their windows, it was only the beginning. Because word of their kindness had started to travel, and in the vast silence of space, their names would echo further than they ever imagined. The stars hadn't changed. They still glittered like quiet thoughts across an endless sky. But something had changed for Jace and Rowan. After rescuing the Violet Echo, word had spread. Small whispers, friendly pilots, grateful captains passing their names like stardust in a bottle. And one morning, in the soft blue light of a Nabari sunrise, a message came. It wasn't a distress signal. It was a request. A massive civilian ship, the Solstice Dawn, had been hijacked. More than 100 passengers, held hostage by a group known only as the Pale Command. Ex-soldiers from a forgotten war, engineered for battle. No mercy, no demands. Jace read the message twice. Rowan already had his boots on. The lantern wasn't built for war. It wasn't built for much, really. But it was theirs, and it always brought them home. They glided through asteroid fields, past broken moons, quiet, focused, together. When they reached the Solstice Dawn, it drifted, silent, lifeless on the outside, but full of fear within. Jace turned to Rowan. "You ready?" Rowan cracked a smile. "I was born ready." They entered through the maintenance hatch. Silent boots, dark corridors. Only emergency lights lit the way, flickering, red and low. Then, footsteps. Heavy, armored, close. The first pale soldier appeared like a shadow, but Rowan was faster. Smoke bomb, flash strike, takedown. No noise, no fear. They moved in sync, like they'd done 100 times. Jace used a grappling line. to swing over a patrol. Rowan disarmed another with a magnet blade and a swift elbow. It wasn't easy. They were bruised, outnumbered, outgunned, but they were brothers, and they didn't break. They reached the main cabin. The passengers were locked behind pressure-sealed doors. A final wave of soldiers guarded the access panel. Jace tapped Rowan's shoulder. "Last round?" Rowan grinned. "Let's dance." Smoke, light, blaster fire hummed through the air. Jace dove. Rowan countered, hand to hand, trick to trick. Every move they'd learned across their years in the stars, they used now. And finally, silence. The doors unlocked. The passengers poured out, wide-eyed and trembling. One little girl ran to Jace and hugged him without a word. He blinked, smiled, and gently patted her shoulder. The solstice dawn was saved. And the brothers, they were heroes now. The Coalition Council awarded them more credits than they'd ever seen. Enough to upgrade the lantern, stronger shields, faster engines, a coffee machine that actually worked. They became official bounty hunters, licensed by the stars themselves. And wherever ships needed saving, or trouble needed stopping, Jace and Rowan would be there. The brothers from the lantern, the symbol of hope. That night, drifting once again through quiet space, Rowan looked out the window. "We're kind of a big deal now," he said. Jace sipped his tea. "Don't let it go to your head." They both laughed, a rare sound, soft and honest. Then, as the lantern sailed steady through the dark, they leaned back in their seats and slept. "Now rest easy, traveler. The stories are done. But your journey isn't. Because for the next hour, you'll drift gently through the galaxy, wrapped in silence, cradled by stars, and carried by the soft, endless hum of space itself. Let the sound soothe you. Let sleep find you. And know that out there, the lantern still glides, and the brothers still watch, just in case." We return to the brothers who fly by starlight, to Jace and Rowan, and to the ship they call home, a story of fire, of pursuit, and of light. Let it begin. The lantern was no longer small. After their rescue of the solstice dawn, the brothers had been gifted enough credits to transform their old silver ship into something worthy of legend. She was still called the Lantern. But now she flew with gleaming hull plating, reinforced shields, and a hyperdrive that could bend time itself. The cockpit was sleeker, the weapons were smarter, and, finally, the coffee machine worked. Jace and Rowan had become official licensed bounty hunters. Their names were spoken in the halls of starports. Their silhouettes hung on recruitment posters. And in quiet corners of the galaxy, they were a warning. One morning, drifting through the nebula lanes near the Corin Divide, the lantern received a message. Encrypted, urgent, crackling through static. "Subject 7 has escaped. Last seen on Emberfall. Proceed with caution." Jace furrowed his brow. Rowan didn't blink. Subject 7 wasn't just a name. He was a nightmare, a rogue engineered being built for war and trained in chaos. Captured once by an alliance of 6 planetary forces, and now loose. Jace set the coordinates. Rowan checked the weapon rack. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The planet Emberfall was unlike any other. Its surface shimmered with obsidian cliffs and rivers of golden vapor. At its heart was the city of Charon's Rest, carved into the stone like a glowing wound. The lantern soared through the atmosphere with a low growl, its engines folding and flaring. The brothers landed on a pad etched into the cliffside, where neon signs blinked and ash fell like snow. Their boots crunched softly on the blackened ground. In silence, they made their way to the nearest tavern, the howling route, where miners and mercenaries drank beneath hanging vines and low orange lights. Inside, Rowan leaned over the bar. "Subject 7, he said, simply. The bartender didn't blink, just pointed hangar row. "Dock 11, he's boarding now." They didn't wait. They sprinted through the back alleys, down stairwells slick with mist, through corridors pulsing with red light. And there ahead of them stood Subject 7, tall, half-shrouded, metal glinting beneath torn robes. He turned as the hatch to his ship hissed open. His eyes, one organic, one burning blue, met theirs. Then he leapt aboard. The ship launched. But so did the brothers. Jace fired his grappling line, the hook snapping against the ship's hull. Rowan followed, their rocket boots flaring to life. Together, they soared, twin comets of fire and will, latching onto the vessel as it surged skyward. With one synchronized breath, they drew blasters from their hips, and with a burst from Rowan's robotic arm, they blasted a hole clean through the side of the hull. They climbed in, and the fight began. Inside, it was chaos. Subject 7 met them with a howl fists and metal crashing through the narrow space. The ship rocked, diving violently through Ember Fall's sky. Jace ducked a blow. Rowan kicked off the wall. Blades clashed. Sparks flew. Subject 7 was strong, fast, unrelenting. He hurled Rowan into the bulkhead. Jace roared, slamming into Subject 7 with everything he had, punching through guards and shoves, hammering the convict with blow after blow. But the ship was falling. Red lights flashed, gravity buckled, the ground spun. Jace grabbed his brother, still dazed, and launched them both back through the hole they'd come in from. Their rocket boots flared just in time. They landed hard on a rooftop, ash kicking up around them. Rowan blinked, coughed, and laughed. "Okay," he said. "That was new." Jace helped him up. "Don't get used to it." But the fight wasn't over. Behind them, through the haze, Subject 7 stood again, bloodied, grinning. He charged. The brothers were ready. They ducked, they weaved, and together, a spin kick from Rowan and a vault from Jace. They took his legs out from under him. Subject 7 hit the ground hard. One final punch, square to the jaw, and he was out cold. Rowan snapped the cuffs shut. Jace exhaled. Ember Fall's wind howled around them. But in that quiet, the stars seemed to nod. Another day, another story. Later that night, back aboard the Lantern, Rowan sipped from his new favorite mug, certified threat neutralizer. Jace smiled faintly as he tuned the nav controls. "You think it'll ever slow down?" Rowan asked. Jace looked out the window to the stars, wide and still. "No," he said, "but we'll be ready." And with the soft hum of the lantern beneath them, the brothers leaned back in their chairs. The stars watched. The galaxy turned, and sleep came softly. Our story begins with two familiar lights. The brothers of the Lantern. Jace and Rowan, bounty hunters turned legends. In the years since their first journeys, they've stopped wars before they started, tracked fugitives across forgotten moons, and saved more lives than the stars could count. But today, they were on lunch break. The Lantern floated in the stillness of open space, its engines purring softly, a lone ship adrift between galaxies. And inside, the heroes of 100 worlds were sitting at a small table, arguing about lunch. Jace poked at his bowl with a fork, grimacing. "Tell me," he said, "how the galaxy's finest bounty hunters end up eating rehydrated astro noodles again?" Rowan smirked, lifting his own fork. "Because the galaxy's finest bounty hunters," he said, "are also the galaxy's laziest chefs." Jace sighed. "We could be eating stellar lobster with solar butter at some fancy port right now." He stared at the swirls of synthetic broth and sighed again. Instead, we've got noodles that taste like melted packaging. Rowan chuckled, leaning back. Yeah, but at least they only explode half the time in the microwave. They laughed quietly, a rare sound in the quiet of the lantern. The ship drifted lazily past a distant comet tail, silver light glinting off her hull. Then, the laughter cut short. A soft tone echoed through the cabin. Static hissed. The ship's console flickered. To anyone who can hear this, a voice crackled. This is Varine Observatory. The sun is dying. Both brothers froze. Rowan's fork slipped from his hand. Jace's eyes locked on the signal trace pulsing across the screen, a frequency they hadn't seen in years. Home. Jace whispered, barely breathing. That's our system. Rowan was already moving, hands flying over the controls. Signal's weak, he said, coming from the outer rim near the observatory station. But if the sun's really... He trailed off. Jace's voice was quiet, steady, but shaking beneath it. Set a course, full burn. The lantern's engines flared to life, soft silver against the dark, and the ship turned toward a fading light. The lantern cut through the dark, its engines humming low, a streak of silver tracing the quiet between stars. Inside the cockpit, the brothers worked in silence. Rowan adjusted the comm dish, fine-tuning the static that hissed through the speakers. Jace sat forward, eyes fixed on the flickering trace of the distress signal. Signals degrading fast, Rowan muttered. Maybe the observatory's power grid's failing. Keep trying, Jace said softly. Rowan flicked a few more switches, the soft clicks echoing in the cabin. Varine Observatory, this is Lantern Command. We received your broadcast. Please respond. Only static. He tried again. Observatory, this is Lantern Command. We copy your distress call. Can anyone read us? Still nothing. Just the whisper of empty space. Rowan leaned back, exhaling through his nose. Jace didn't say anything. He just watched the stars slide by outside the window. After a moment, Rowan spoke again. You know, he said quietly, it was always a little chilly back home. A half-smile tugged at his lips. But I never thought it'd come to this. Jace glanced over, eyes softening. Neither did I. For a while, they just sat there. Two suns chasing a fading star. Outside, the light of their home system began to appear. Faint, blue, trembling. Rowan adjusted the viewport filters. The sight made both of them go silent. The sun of Varine, once golden and bright, now burned pale and sickly, its warmth bleeding away into the void. The planets that circled it glowed faintly under its fading touch, their nights stretching longer, their days colder. Still think we should have had the lobster? Rowan asked quietly. Jace didn't laugh. He just said, let's bring it back first. Then we'll see about dinner. The lantern angled downward toward the frozen light of home. The lantern slid through the void, a silver streak cutting toward the dying light of Varine. Through the viewport, the planet grew larger, its surface a glittering expanse of glossy crystal ice, snow swirling endlessly across frozen plains and jagged peaks. The cold reflected in pale blue and white, making the faint glow of the sun appear almost ethereal. Rowan adjusted the throttle. Visibility's dropping fast, he said, voice steady but clipped. Snow's whipping up. It's like flying through diamond dust. Jace leaned forward, eyes scanning instruments. Observatory's just ahead. Keep her steady. We need a clean approach. For a moment, the planet's beauty was hypnotic. Endless ice cliffs, frozen rivers glinting beneath the fading sun. And then a warning light blinked on the console. "Engine 2, Rowan said calmly, dropping to 60%, colds affecting the coolant lines. Jace didn't flinch. "Adjust main thrusters by 2 degrees starboard. Compensate with lateral thrusters. We're not losing this ship today." The brothers spoke in short, precise bursts, their voices overlapping perfectly, like a well-rehearsed rhythm. Outside, the snowstorm thickened, turning the planet into a blur of white, glinting ice and shadow. The observatory appeared ahead, perched like a lone sentinel atop a jagged ridge. Jace guided the lantern closer, the landing bay visible beneath the structure, barely. "Too close," Rowan cut in, altitude dropping. Jace twisted the controls sharply, rerouting lateral thrusters. The lantern swerved violently, snow exploding against the hull. Even as the engines whined, giving way to the cold, the brothers stayed composed, communicating in perfect tandem. "Brace for impact," Jace said. Rowan nodded. The ship slammed into the mountainside near the observatory, ice and stone rushing up to meet them. Ice cracked beneath the hull. Snow sprayed like mist across the viewport. The lantern skidded a few meters before coming to a halt, half buried in snow and stone. For a moment, silence. Then the soft hum of the damaged engines, and the quiet voice of Rowan, grinning faintly. Well, could be worse. Jace rubbed his jaw, looking out at the frozen peaks. Yeah, at least we're not orbiting anymore. Outside, the observatory loomed, battered by snow and frost, but still standing. A silent reminder that help had arrived, even if imperfectly. Inside the observatory's deepest chamber, beneath layers of frost and forgotten steel, Rowan found it. A schematic etched into crystal glass, unfinished, abandoned, labeled only. Stellar Transference Array. Jace studied the equations in silence. Finally, he exhaled slowly. This isn't a stabilizer. Rowan shook his head. No, it's a door. The device had been theorized centuries ago, a way to fold space gently enough to move a star without tearing worlds apart. But it required a very specific kind of sun, one that warmed nothing, fed no planets, held no life. A lonely star. Rowan tapped the data stream. There's one, he said softly. Drifting in interstellar dark. No orbit, no system, no name. Jace closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. Then we don't steal. We adopt. The array took hours to assemble. Every movement was careful, reverent. Cables hummed, ancient machinery woke from centuries of sleep. Outside, the dying sun dimmed further, as if listening. When they activated the array, space itself seemed to inhale. The observatory shook, not violently, but deeply, like the universe shifting its weight. Far beyond charts and maps, the lonely star felt the call. Light bent, distance folded, and with a soundless bloom of white and gold, the sky changed. Where the dying sun once burned weak and pale, a new star emerged, steady, warm, alive, settling into the sky as if it had always belonged there, as if it had been waiting. Snow began to melt. Ice cracked softly, not in pain, but in release. The planet breathed for the first time in years. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Rowan laughed under his breath. We just moved a sun. Jace watched the new light spill across their world. Yeah, he said, and it finally has something to care for. As the lantern lifted into the sky, the new sun rose fully, casting long, golden light across Vereen. 2 brothers faded into the stars, leaving warmth behind. Sleep gently, traveler. Somewhere out there, even the loneliest light can find a home.